We launched Metafin in 2018, but as luck would have it, you had COVID in 2020. It was a death knell for our business. So peak pandemic, ended up going to 5 odd villages. What I saw there was eye-opening for me. You had so many micro enterprises which was being run on a daily basis on diesel. So a typical guy was spending about 1,000 rupees on diesel on a daily basis, and UP has 100,000 villages. If you look at any village having 700 people or more, will have at least 2 to 3 grinding operations. So you're talking about 300,000 applications of one vertical in one state.
If you could list down top areas of impact.
The amount of energy which has been consumed by our customers from the date of installations till date is enough to power the entire city of London for 6 hours, including transportation.
Welcome to Hard Truths by Vertex. Today I'm speaking with Sandeep Chopra, co-founder and CEO of Metafin. Metafin is financing solar energy for rural businesses and households across India, bringing both power and credit to underserved communities. And vertexventures Southeast Asia and India led their Series A round this year. Now let's talk to him. So Sandeep, I was reading a report a few weeks back on how solar is taking off in Africa in a very big way in the last 6 to 12 months. It has become the cheapest source of energy, and it's also a sustainable source of energy. Well, why do you think solar is really taking off in a big way, especially in the global south?
So I think the first thing which is very obvious is the economics now. The technology existed many years ago. I mean, you look at the space programs, the NASA programs, all those satellites had solar panels installed, but they were never commercially viable. And over the last couple of decades, the technology has actually become very viable because of large-scale manufacturing happening in China. And especially on the global south side, sunlight is abundant, right? If you look at in India, for example, on an average, we have 340 days of sunlight. And, the competition of this per se is against fossil fuels, which will always be limited and more expensive, right? So if your cost of manufacturing is going down, technology is improving in terms of giving you better output per square feet, it's a win-win-win scenario. And the other advantage of solar is that it can be decentralized. It can be put at any scale, at any surface, right? I mean, because the only other example I can give you is if you think of Lego.
Yeah.
Right? It's a building block. Yeah. You want to have a 100-foot building, you can put the blocks together and put it there. Right? Yeah. If you want 10 square feet, you can put that also. And solar gives you that flexibility. Yeah. And it's improving every day. It is going to increase as we go along with AI and all of that coming in. The need for power and large quantities of power is only going to multiply.
Yeah.
Right? So in the entire mix, I think this will continue to be the cheapest and the most adaptable source as we go along.
So to make it cheapest, you mentioned the improvements in manufacturing. So besides that, is it just a matter of everybody coming together and saying that, okay, we need to have sustainable sources of energy, and these are the options that we have, and we need to somehow make it at least at par or below than the existing one, which is the mostly oil?
Well, not really. I think somebody had to start somewhere, right? I mean, I remember when I started in solar, our first installation that we did was not even economical at all for anybody to adopt, right? This was in Punjab. The first megawatt that we installed was not even under JNSSM, the first Indian program, right?
Okay.
But it was a belief that eventually Moore's law will apply, technology will become better, costs will come down. As costs will come down, government will start focusing on that. There'll be incentives coming in. And once there is parity, it'll just take off. And that's exactly how it's played out.
Yeah.
Right? The first megawatt, I think, that we installed was 25 or 26 rupees per unit is what we were charging. Today, that 25 rupees has come down to 3 rupees. Yeah. So you're talking about, couple of decades and where we are today. And even on this, people are making money.
So you've been doing solar for a while. Why start Metafin?
I'm not an engineer. I'm a finance guy. In 2008, I was quite, blown away with the entire crisis and stuff. At that time, I was based in London, and my orbit shift, so to speak, started happening. And the question that I was facing at that time was, yeah, what if something happens to me tomorrow? What is the legacy that I'm leaving behind? And while looking at people from one of the large investment bank, losing their jobs one Thursday afternoon, and that just once that question starts coming to your mind, the answer was, you know what? If something happens to me tomorrow, I would have probably secured my family for a few years. I would probably have a handful of friends who would mourn, and my family, of course, and that's about it. And that was not something which was acceptable to me, right? That coupled with the 2008 crisis, I said, no, you need to kind of change that. This is not how you want to live your life. And we packed our bags, came back to India. And I had two broad themes. One was education, where on the back of a World Bank skill report, and the other one was, the balance of payment position of India and reliance on oil, and therefore clean energy. But I didn't have exposure to either of these two. And as luck would have it, a friend of mine was starting India's first solar IPP. We got talking, joined, and the journey started. My heart was always on the retail side of business, right? And the reason for that was that if India truly had to move away from fossil fuel, retail customers had to pick up. Now, retail could be, a residential customer, it could be a small commercial customer, a micro enterprise, etc., etc. But as luck would have it, I started my career when, the large plants took off. Nobody was talking about rooftop at that time. And we just got consumed in that. And for 4 years, I learned everything about solar. We deployed about, 1,400 megawatts. But again, my heart was on the retail side. And the question was always, what will it take for retail to pick up?
Why this focus on retail though? Like even large parks, they sell it to discoms.
See, it is your personal preference, right?
Yeah.
That time, large plants were, going up. Even today, they are. Large pools of capital are required. But India is one of the most populated countries in the world. And with sunshine being everywhere and the Lego concept of solar, why should that not pick up? And that was a clean slate for anyone to look at it.
Yeah.
And when I left that IPP in 2017 post their IPO, I was very clear that, look, this is where we want to, or I want to spend my next decade or couple of decades. And how do we do it? And the paths were two. The first one was do an EPC, which is, procurement, construction, all of that. But that to me was not very scalable. That is what we were very good at the IPP stage, where we used to bid, win the contract, do the EPC, then start generating revenue on a capex model, right? So, or OPEX model. And the second path was that if you think about it deeper, it is very difficult for somebody who's so used to paying their energy bills on a monthly basis to stand up one fine day and say, you know what, I will use my terrace for generating solar power on a promise that it will give me some returns over a period of time, and I will put 5 lakh rupees now. Right? So to me, it was very clear that there was a area of play where somebody who understood technology and could couple it with finance to make it much more affordable for these customers. Right? If I was to come to you and say, oh, your energy bill is 10,000 rupees, let me install this plant on your rooftop. You pay me this much for these many years, but whatever you are paying me is less than 10,000, you will jump.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So that is what caught my eye. And I said, look, this is an area of play where today there's no competition. Banks will find it very, very difficult to understand what they are financing at a retail scale. We have the skill set, and this can actually become a pan-India play.
There are a lot of companies focusing on rural and urban household solar.
Yeah.
But you focused on the small businesses, MSME in rural India. Why that though?
Yeah, so I would not take the credit of strategy around it. There was no strategy. It was largely out of, survival. We launched Metafin, or we created the company in 2018. We got our first customers towards the end of 2018, and we were knocking the doors of the banks for somebody to come and finance them. But nobody did. So we ended up applying for our own NBFC license. We got our license in May 2019, hit the ground running in September 2019. But as luck would have it, you had COVID in 2020. Nobody was allowed to get into anybody's house. It was a death knell for our business. We came out of it 2020 September, started again. As luck would have it, you had the Delta wave, which was even more deadlier than the first one. And being a very small startup in this space, we had about 100 odd installations or loans at that time. The good thing was people paid us back despite the delays and stuff. The bad thing was that we were in a bad shape of survival. And I still remember in May 2020, I read one article in one of the newspapers where they said that, look, urban centers are getting impacted more than the rural centers. Rural economy is actually picking up much more nicely and is consuming more. I called up a friend of mine. I said, I want to go to 5 or 10 villages. Can you just arrange for me? And he said, yeah, you're more than welcome. So peak pandemic, ended up going to 5 odd villages. And what I saw there was eye-opening for me, that you had so many, micro enterprises, which are the heart of a rural community, which was being run on a daily basis on diesel. And then the question was that, why diesel? Everybody had, a connection of electricity, but it was low-grade residential power. For you to run a motor-based business, you need, commercial power. And that then got me thinking that how much is, how much is the money that this guy is spending on a daily basis? And these were very basic tasks, right? For example, North India today is all wheat eating, and India is the second largest wheat producer in the world. Yeah. If people do not get wheat or flour on a daily basis to eat, they will not survive. It's as basic as that. And if you look at these villages, UP being the most populous state in the country, and about 80% being rural, communities there, it is something which has to be there in every village. So I visited one of these atta chakkis or flour mills, and then I started, financially modeling them. What is the amount of money they are spending? What is the kind of machinery that they have? And can we build a model where we, help them move away from that, and which is commercially viable for them? So a typical guy, what I learned that time, was spending about 1,000 rupees on diesel on a daily basis. And this is a daily business, like I explained. And UP has 100,000 villages. Even if you look at any village having 700 people or more, which is easily the case, you'll have at least 2 to 3 grinding operations. So you're talking about 300,000 applications of one vertical in one state. And
so the main vertical are the mills, or?
That is how we started. So the commercials made sense. That, look, 1,000 rupees a day, 30,000 rupees he's spending. How do I get him to convert to solar, ensuring that he is only paying a part of that to me? So the first question was, if we were to convert it into solar, is there a technology which can take this? Right? Because it was all off-grid, and off-grid typically for everybody is off-grid is battery. What we realized was these were motor-based applications. And even today, if you look at e-bikes and stuff, these are motor controllers, right? So there is a technology which we could bring in without batteries, which could actually help people move away from fossil fuel. So then we constructed a financial model. We found our first customer, Ashok Kumar Singh, I still remember him, 50 to 60 kilometers away from Banaras. And I went to him, I spoke to him, I said, this is what we want to do. Would you allow us to do? But I don't have money to lose. And his response still is so live with me that, look, sir, this should have been done 10 to 15 years ago. You don't worry, you do what you have to do. If there is a loss, I will bear it. Imagine a micro enterprise owner giving you that sense of, conviction and confidence. And we did our first, then the question was, who would install it? Yeah. Where do we get it? Then we found an installer partner, got that thing installed, and it became a success. He was able to save about 80% of his cost on a daily basis. And this was in September 2021.
like your first customer, Ashok Kumar, maybe not all customers will have the conviction or creditworthiness to take up this, right? So, and it's impossible for a typical bank to kind of finance these. So, how do you underwrite these loans?
Our philosophy was that if we are saving money for the person, why would he not pay you? He
Yeah.
would not pay you if he was a fraud. Right? And we had taken a call very early that we are not going to say no to people who've not borrowed before. Because chances are in rural India, people who've not borrowed before are actually financially much more robust or sound than people who've borrowed before. You still have to do your checks and balances, you still have to do your physical visits, etc., etc. And we've got our proprietary mechanism around it. But our focus is largely on the cash flow and the volume of business the guy is doing,
Okay.
which is going to be a function of, what is the kind of machinery he has, what is the kind of, grinding he does on a daily basis, what is the cost of that grinding, what is the revenue that he generates, how many days can he generate that revenue for, therefore what is his ability or free cash flow that he can use to pay us back.
Yeah.
Right, that is where our core focus has been. And what we found was majority of these guys, whether it was a wheat grinder, he would also have a mustard speller. So they have multiple sources of income. You just have to go and set up a model or a framework within which you can capture all of that.
So almost half of them are borrowing for the first time.
Yeah.
And mostly these business owners are men, or?
No. So we don't do a single borrower lending. We have to have two people.
Okay.
Because the mortality rate and all that stuff in these areas is very high. 62% of our customers would have a woman as a co-borrower, and which is a very substantial amount.
Yeah.
Because if you go into these areas, men also go into the field and work, and therefore women will be the ones who will front end the business.
So other than cash flow, the volume, is there anything else that you look at?
Yeah. So every customer of ours has to be visited by a Metafin employee. It was very clear to us right from day one that it has to be a phygital model, which means you have the best of digital processes run by feet on street. We've now got about 130 people, out of which about 90 would be feet on street in the states we operate. And we don't restrict them by putting in branches. They are all mobile. They have to be on the field, meeting customers, looking at them, doing their evaluations, etc., etc. So physical visit for us is mandatory for each one of these customers. If the physical visit is not done, money will not go out.
Earlier you mentioned the grid is not reliable enough for even small commercial operations. So is solar, in your opinion, the right solution for this?
There are two or three problems that you have. One is people who do not have the grid there, because bringing grid to that area is very expensive. Right? So people still have options. They can pay for a 3-phase transformer to the government, get a 3-phase transformer put there, get energy for their operations. The problem with that is the entire village gets dependent on that. And if something happens to the transformer, the entire village comes to your home, which is why people stay away from that. Right? So these are people where, the option is there, but do not utilize that option. And they are happy doing, diesel gensets or through their tractors, etc., etc. The second part is where people have the connections, but the power is very, very intermittent for a large part of the year, or probably 4 to 5 months of a year. So a typical example could be a petrol pump in Bihar, rural area. The third piece would be where there is full supply of electricity. That is where your question is. If there is full grid, full supply of electricity, will solar still make sense? My answer is absolutely yes. And the reason for that is, just because grid is available there doesn't mean that the cost of supplying energy to them at a unit will fall below 3 rupees or 4 rupees, unless some government was to say these many units are free.
Yeah.
Right? Today, the issue with rural customers, or what we see or what I see, I've traveled about 25,000 kilometers now in these areas, is the aspirational value. They don't know better. The moment they see something better coming in, they are the early adopters. And testament to that is, September 2021, we did our first installation. September 2022, we were doing 8 a month. Today, we are doing 15 a day.
Nice.
In under 2 to 3 years, that kind of growth, without spending any money on marketing, without any customer acquisition cost, that's the beauty of being in those areas. Trust works.
I guess there's a lot of word of mouth. So typically in one village, the number was...
It all depends on the population that you have, right? So our sense is, on an average, minimum of 2 to 3.
Okay.
Right? But with grinding, you will have ARA machines, you will have poultry farms. All of those become your customers.
Yeah.
Right? Today we are doing ice cream factories also. Diversification is happening via states as well. Every roof in that area is your customer potential.
So from the government side, I see a lot of support for rural and urban rooftop solar. And then also there's a lot of large solar parks being built. There is no, I've not been able to come across with any specific program specifically for rural businesses.
Government has done a wonderful job to promote clean energy. Everybody knows about solar. So I think they've done their bit. Now, why are there programs for residential? Because residential themselves, on its own 2 feet, in India, if you look at the energy market, right, residential customers are subsidized by commercial, which is diametrically opposite to the West, where commercial customers are subsidized by residential. So the offtake of solar in the West actually happened through residential first, right? Whereas in India, it's diametrically opposite because of political reasons also, etc., etc. So if you were to adopt solar for your home on the economics of today, let's say if you were in a city like Lucknow or whatever, it doesn't make sense. The payback period is too long. It starts making sense when subsidy comes in. So therefore, government is plugging that in. But if you look at the trend of subsidies over the last 5 to 10 years, it's actually significantly declining. Right? So it's just a temporary push that the government is giving. Otherwise, the philosophy has to be every business has to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. What we've done in our areas, our typical customers are not customers which are on the grid from any perspective. They have bank accounts, there's no money in the bank. They don't have registered businesses. These are guys who are running very small enterprises which are not in the radar today. Right? Another example I'll give you is in Bihar, for example. Bihar, every village that we go to has a smart meter attached. Every guy has a smart meter. The problem with that is those are all prepaid. You have to pay first, then use. Imagine you're running your business and suddenly the money goes off and then you have to go 8 kilometers or ask a tout to go and pay for you. The moment they find an alternative, they say, okay, 100% we want to be independent. And I see that, accelerating as we go along. As people get to know that this works and it actually helps them in every area of work that they do, you will see the acceleration. And that is what we are seeing today.
Besides the difficulty of making payments, right? What are the other challenges in serving rural?
Trust is a big element for these guys. If you are selling them or if you are backing a product which you don't have knowledge of, in this case, a solar project, the components, if you don't understand how it's designed and the promise to generate energy on a daily basis, what they are promised and they save, chances are you will lose money. Like, this guy is not going to be able to pay for that. And diesel, this is one of the challenges which every finance company who wants to enter this area needs to think about, and which is why you see a lot of people who come in, shut shop, then start, etc., etc. I think the second challenge which is there is that the sheer, demographics and the scale. We've enabled 5,100 plants in about 3,600 villages. How do you reach these customers? How do you ensure that they pay? On top of it, we've got a policy saying we will not collect cash right from day one. So we are not only, you have to think about how do you change their behavior also. And you have to handhold them. And third element, the third challenge, which majority of the finance guys will or financial services companies will struggle, is the degree of flexibility because of the operational difficulties for these customers. A very good example for this is we've got an excellent digital infra, but we see that 20 to 30% of our customers till date are using those, button phones, right? So how do they pay? So they have the way they make the payment is they have to go 8 to 10 kilometers to a Jan Dhan Kendra, which is set up by the government, pay 100 rupees to pay an EMI to us. And if you don't allow them that flexibility of if your EMI is due on the 5th, has to come on the 5th, it will not work.
Yeah.
Right? But what we've seen over the last 3 years, as we've started educating them, the NASH uptake has started happening.
Yeah.
There are so many opportunities now for us to get them into, have bank accounts with private sector banks, which are on the NPCI and all of that. And those are the things which are, which will make them truly financially inclusive.
So essentially, these villages are spread across, difficult to reach physically, but you have to make sure that you are physically present and in all these places. Second thing is um, you have to give them flexibility in terms of repayment, and the third thing is you need to really understand their business before you can underwrite.
Yeah. Otherwise, chances are 9 out of 10 times you'll make a mistake. And last but not the least, I think is a question that people will know or ask is how do you ensure that all these assets that you've financed are working on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Right? If you don't know that, then you're basically sitting on a time bomb. And we at Metafin have actually developed an entire IoT stack, or we are in the process of developing that. And 40% of our plants are already on that. We get data every 2 seconds, and we are building, AI models, etc. on that. This to me will become, the biggest source of actual data, energy consumption data with weather integrated, which can then help us significantly improve our risk models as we go along and also manage the risk properly. This to me is the key. And that is also demonstrated in the numbers that we are, doing month on month and stuff, because we are thinking 360 degree customer centricity. What are the problems? How can we help solve? And our assumption is that our installer partners will not stand behind those installations. And therefore, what does Metafin do? That's how we are building the organization.
As of now, you're providing credit for a lot of unbanked folks in rural India, and also solving the problem of reliable energy. Right? So if you could add one more element to it, that could be like a real force multiplier for MSME in rural India, what would that be?
I think insurance becomes very critical because we know for a fact mortality rate in these areas is very high. You know for a fact health is a problem. If something happens, money goes there because it's cash, right? And therefore, how do you manage that risk? And climate risks also are more amplified in these areas, right? June of 2024, last year, and I was in Banaras in one of these villages, and believe you me, for the whole month, not even a single installation was done in the day, because it was so hot you could not touch steel.
Wow.
All the installations are done at night. Therefore, air conditioning could be the next big thing for them. So there are multiple opportunities, but if I was to kind of pick one, which we are now also doing and making it mandatory, it's your life insurance, it's your health insurance. Health insurance, unfortunately, did not work because insurance companies typically need formal bills for the claims to be processed, when unfortunately in these areas are not available. So we had to stop that. We are again kind of trying to calibrate how do we do that. Along with that would be healthcare, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not my area of expertise, but what we see there is that there's a significant amount of opportunity in those areas as well.
So what is one surprising thing that you learned from rural India?
To me, and again, our book is too small, and I'm just talking about my own experience. This myth that people have that rural guys do not care about paying back, are fraudulent, is something that I was very, very pleasantly surprised about. We have issues. I mean, issues will happen. But if you typically look at that guy, all of those guys would be very honorable in terms of not getting their name dragged into things which are issues and stuff, which was diametrically opposite to my understanding. Urban, for on the other side, we've had more issues on repayments than these guys. These guys will delay. That is something that we know, right? And we cater for it. But they will pay. Urban is more problematic. People are more aware, and that also sometimes becomes a bigger problem to solve. So that was one part. The second piece, which I need to give kudos to the government as well, is I've traveled about 20 to 25,000 kilometers over the last 3 to 4 years. There is not even a single customer of ours that we've not been able to reach via a road.
Nice.
That was a big surprise to me. I always thought you'll have to go into, a tractor, a trolley to get there. No, that's not true. I've gone to visit a customer. I do my surprise visits every month, and I've not been able to get there because the road is not there.
Yeah.
It's just not happened. I've traveled extensively in UP, which is our largest market. I've traveled extensively in Bihar, which is our second largest market. Now I've started traveling to Odisha, which is we've just started. Everywhere the infrastructure works, there are airports.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk on UPI like tech for energy, both for trading energy. So if you have a rooftop solar, you can not only produce, but you can also sell back to other folks or back to the grid. So how do you see this? Is this going to have any impact at all in rural India?
See, rural, again, is a very wide term that we use. So rural also where there is grid, where there is no grid. Where there is no grid, there is no impact. But you could have business models where people might say, okay, I've got a solar plant, I will charge batteries and I will give batteries on rent to other people in the village. So that's something separate, which is not peer, which is peer to peer, but not technologically led. On the urban side, I think from grid stability standpoint, I think it's a very good idea. It's a noble idea. I think how the infrastructure works is something to be seen. There are pilots which have been done in Delhi, in Lucknow. Some of them have been successful. It all depends on what the regulatory aspect would be. Time of day, capturing the engineering part, the tech behind it, and of course blockchain, which has to be an automated ledger. I think it's a very, very good idea. I think it will catch up soon. I think the challenge will be the restriction that people have on their rooftops to generate energy. I mean, if I had a 3 kilowatt system and I've got 1 unit extra a day and I'm selling it at 4 rupees, doesn't move the needle. But if I somehow have a 3 kilowatt system, my consumption is 1 kilowatt, and I'm selling 2/3, and then finding that 2/3 and matching that, all of those things need to be answered. So at scale, even one would really add. So I think it has to be tested. My sense is it will find its own 2 feet, and it will accelerate. If nothing else, from a grid standpoint, grid stability standpoint, I think it's a very, very good idea to go after.
I'm from Kerala. Recently, there's been some pushback from the state discom saying that this is going to affect our revenue. You make the argument that it's still better for grid stability.
So grid stability is good. The discom has to be a key player in that, and they have to be paid a commission, for example, to make that sale happen.
Okay.
Otherwise, what you're eventually doing is you're basically taking the best customers off the grid, asking them to trade, reduce the consumption from the grid, therefore discom losing revenue, and discoms are either ways not in good
Not in
health.
good shape.
So unless discoms become a part of this entire chain, there will always be practical impediments caused for this not to happen.
Yeah.
So the model will only work if there is something for discom also to make its ends meet. Otherwise, you're bleeding on one side and you're making somebody else richer.
If Metafin succeeds at scale, we're talking about maybe like 10x of the kind of plans that you have from right now.
Our aspirations are much higher. Today, we have enabled about 5,100 odd installations in 3,500 villages.
Yeah.
My personal aspiration would be to touch 1 million customers over the next 5 to 7 years. And the reason why I think it is doable is, one, it makes commercial sense. Two, the model is now working. We just need to the playbook is there. We've seen the cycles, etc. Three, I think two stats that I'd like to put here is 68% of Indian population is rural population today.
Yeah.
Right? But the energy penetration for that 68% is about 50%. Right?
Yeah.
Urban population, which is 32%, has an energy penetration of about 94%.
Yeah. Almost 100%.
So you just do a simple math.
Yeah.
Everybody needs energy.
Yeah.
Right? If you can find a business model which pays for itself and makes your customer win and you get paid in return, this is a market to be captured.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to do things right, basics right, have to have responsible growth, and money has to come back, etc., etc. But from a sheer opportunity standpoint, if you look at these stats and look at the sheer numbers you're talking about, it's just phenomenal. Next 20 years, you can continue to build businesses around it. You enable financial inclusion, you enable energy, and if you can get data out of that, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, so it's not just the number of folks who need more energy, more reliable energy, right? It's also the per capita consumption also will increase significantly.
You just have to show people that this is possible. I mean, our one customer, if he saves 300,000 rupees on the back of solar installation per annum, and their payback period is 2.5 years, that 3.5 lakh rupee for a guy sitting in that village is life-changing. He becomes a king. He can afford an air conditioner, he can afford an e-bike. These assets can be used for, charging e-bikes. I mean, imagine 5,000 decentralized solar assets. You just have to plug and play your e-bikes here. You can have multiple business models thriving around it. So I'm quite bullish about this thing. It's not that we are only going to be focused on a particular vertical. Verticals will continue to change as you go and penetrate. I mean, every geography is different. MP is different from Odisha. Odisha is different from Bihar. And I've not yet come across any single person who understands all these markets.
There is obviously a lot of impact that we can't even see with doing something like this, right? So if you could maybe list down like maybe top 5 areas of impact.
The impacts are many, but I'll just first of all, I think the volume of work people need, a lot of people who would not understand energy, etc., and the work that we are a fairly small enterprise right now, growing rapidly, 5,100 installations. And the reason why I talk about 5,100 installations is people understand the gravity a lot more than anything else, and an average size is about 13 kilowatts. Now, in a layman's term, the amount of energy which has been consumed by our customers from the date of installations till date is enough to power the entire city of London for 6 hours, including transportation. And this is still now. Now, if you start extrapolating it for 25 years, the numbers become staggering, right? In terms of the impact, I mean, some of the straightforward impacts are 10 million liters of diesel which have been offset, about 23 million kgs of carbon reversal, increase in livelihood of direct indirect customers or customers of our customers. Our estimate is a minimum of about 25%. Women empowerment, I've already told you 62% of our borrowers are either a borrower or co-borrower would be a woman. and financial inclusion, which is 43 to 44% of our customers are new to credit, right? And you've got many more coming in, entrepreneurs, etc., because we've set up this entire ecosystem where we've got installer partners. And some of our installer partners have grown their business about 10 to 15 fold in the last 2 to 3 years just because we came in, right? So there's a significant impact story as well. But like I said, we are a commercially driven enterprise, trying to do the best that we can and delivering, impact as well.
In what other ways do you think this will transform Bharat or rural India?
So there was this customer who was running his flour mill and mustard speller and is doing, phenomenal, earning about 2 to 3,000 rupees a day. And this was being done on a DG set.
Okay.
Typically, all of these installations are within the house premises. Imagine the whole day the grinder working on the back of diesel and the noise that it creates.
Yeah.
And he had 4 young children, right? Those 4 young children had to go out to study somewhere X kilometers, right? He was spending more, noise pollution, air pollution within the house, kids not being able to study, livelihood getting impacted, etc., etc. Fast forward that to the solar installation. Business gets done in the business hours. Zero or no reliance on diesel, so no noise, no pollution. Kids at home, on time, studying while the work is happening. There's no better example than transformation than this.
Yeah.
And all of this, and then saving some.
Yeah.
Today, that guy has an air conditioner in his home. He has 2 television sets. He's sent one of his daughters to become a doctor, right? It's 3 to 4 lakh rupees that's made the change.
Yeah.
Multiply that with tens of thousands.
I've also come across this. The amount of money that you need to offer in terms of credit that can change someone's life is far lesser than we think.
And by the way, this is all a byproduct of what we are doing. I think we need to be very mindful that we are a commercially driven enterprise. Lending is easy, collections are harder, but we seem to have a model which is working. We will continue to refine it, continue to make it better. We are investing heavily on the technology side as well. And like I said, for us, Phygital is the model that the best of digital processes run by locals. So you have the local insight with the smartness of processes to keep our costs low, get better access.
Yeah. This was great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
No, thank you, Rahul.